Okay, so let's talk about this episode of Rick and Morty. You know, the one where they go into dreams. It's episode 2 of season 1, right? And honestly, when I rewatch it, I always think about how much chaos Justin Roiland and Dan Harmon managed to cram into what feels like, at first glance, a pretty straightforward concept. It's like they took the idea of going into someone's brain and said, okay, but what if we made it incredibly messy, and also what if everyone involved was kind of the worst? It feels like a pilot episode that got pushed to episode 2, you know? Like they're still figuring out who these characters are, and they're just throwing everything at the wall to see what sticks. And a lot of it does stick, but it's sticky in that weird, slightly unsettling way that only Rick and Morty can pull off. We get Snuffles, who I'm pretty sure is just a furry Napoleon complex. We get Jerry being peak Jerry, which is always a highlight. And we get Rick doing, well, Rick things, which usually involves messing with the fabric of reality for a grade on a math test. But the craziest thing about this episode, the thing that still blows my mind, is how they managed to build an entire dream logic nightmare that feels both hilariously absurd and genuinely unsettling, all while making us question if Rick actually knows what he's doing half the time. You're going to be asking yourself, how did we get from a dog peeing on the carpet to a sentient dog wanting to be called Snowball and a dream plane filled with terror? Buckle up, because this one is a wild ride, and I promise you, it only gets weirder. And hey, if you're finding yourself nodding along to all this Rick and Morty craziness, maybe consider hitting that subscribe button, you know, so you don't miss out when I inevitably dive into the next episode and try to make sense of the multiverse with you. It's like we're all just here, trying to understand Rick's genius or his madness or whatever it is. This episode really kicks off the whole season with a bang, setting the tone for the kind of sci-fi chaos we're going to be dealing with, and frankly, it's brilliant. It's got that perfect blend of high-concept sci-fi and lowbrow humor that just makes you want to keep watching, even when things get a little much. You know, when you think about how much is packed into this episode, it's honestly a miracle it holds together. But it does, and it does it with style and a healthy dose of existential dread. It's like they're saying, hey, here's Rick and Morty. Buckle up, it's going to be a bumpy ride. And boy, were they right. The fact that this episode came out way back in 2013, when the world was a very different place, just adds another layer to its charm. While everyone else was dealing with, I don't know, whatever was happening on Twitter or the latest political drama, these guys were busy creating a universe where dogs become super intelligent and teachers' dreams turn into suicide missions. It's a beautiful form of escapism, really. It's the kind of show that makes you grateful your biggest problem is just trying to get a C in algebra. This episode is a perfect storm of character flaws, bizarre science, and a narrative that feels like it's constantly on the verge of collapsing, but somehow never does. It's a testament to the writer's ability to juggle so many insane ideas and still deliver a cohesive, albeit batshit, story. So, let's unpack this madness. It's a lot, but that's why we're here. Okay, so on the surface, this episode is all about Rick and Morty messing with dreams. The initial setup is pure domestic sitcom gone wrong. Jerry's watching golf, being all smug about his perfect hobby, and his birdie, which, let's be honest, is a metaphor for his entire life. A lot of little victories that don't really add up to anything significant. Then the dog, Snuffles, does what dogs do. He pees on the carpet. Jerry, being Jerry, completely loses it, and in a moment of pure, unadulterated dad rage, he pressures Rick into making the dog smarter. This is classic Jerry, right? He wants an easy fix, a scientific miracle to solve his minor inconveniences, and he's willing to use his son and Rick's questionable genius to get it. Rick, of course, is totally over it, but he's also living with them rent-free, so he's kinda trapped by Jerry's desperate plea, even if he pretends to be above it. The core of this episode, underneath all the dream jumping and dog sentience, is about control and validation. Jerry wants control over his dog, over his family, and ultimately over his own life, which he clearly feels slipping away. He wants to feel superior, just like Rick said. He wants a dog that's impressive, that makes him look good. And he wants Rick to acknowledge his authority, to use his science for his family, not just for Morty's grades. It's a pathetic, but also deeply human desire. Meanwhile, Rick's motivation is twofold. He wants Morty to help him with his science, which means Morty needs to be smart enough to understand it, and he also just wants to prove he can do whatever he wants. He's the god of this universe, and Jerry is just a little mortal throwing tantrums. The dream sequences themselves are where things really explode. Rick invents this device, the dream recorder, which is basically his answer to Inception, but, more practical and less pretentious, according to him. He wants to use it to get Morty an A in math from his teacher, Mr. Goldenfold. This is where the episode really delves into the idea of taking shortcuts and manipulating reality to get what you want. It's not about learning, it's about achievement by any means necessary. Morty, bless his anxious heart, is uneasy about it. He questions Rick's methods, even suggesting Rick could just help him with his homework. But Rick dismisses it, saying homework is stupid, and the point is to do less of it. This sets up the entire theme of the episode, the allure of the easy way out versus genuine effort and understanding. As they dive into Goldenfold's dreams, the episode reveals layers of his subconscious, and honestly, it's a disturbing, hilarious mess. We see a dream where Goldenfold is a pilot, threatening to crash the plane unless Morty gets better grades, which is peak absurdism. Then it gets even weirder as they're forced to jump deeper into other people's dreams within dreams. This escalating complexity is where the writing really shines. It's not just a simple dream invasion, it's a recursive nightmare, a labyrinth of subconscious minds. The episode brilliantly uses these dreamscapes to explore the character's deepest fears and desires, even if those desires are utterly bizarre, like Goldenfold's pervy attraction to Summer, which is revealed in a truly uncomfortable way. And then, just when you think it can't get any more twisted, we see the consequences of Rick's initial science experiment. Snuffles, now Snowball, has become a super intelligent dog, leading a canine revolution. This parallel plotline is genius. It shows the unintended, often disastrous consequences of meddling with nature and science, mirroring the chaos happening in the dream world. While Rick and Morty are navigating a dream plane that's falling apart, the Smith household is dealing with the literal uprising of their pet. It's a perfect juxtaposition of external chaos and internal family drama, all amplified by Rick's influence. The episode ultimately critiques the desire for easy solutions and the potential for unintended consequences. Jerry wants a smarter dog and gets a furry dictator. Rick wants Morty to get good grades and gets him into a life-or-death dream battle. It's a commentary on how trying to cheat the system, whether it's with science or with shortcuts, often leads to bigger problems. The writing, for a second episode, is remarkably tight. The two plot lines, the dream invasion and the dog revolution, feel interconnected because they both stem from Rick's actions and the family's flawed desires. The pacing is excellent, constantly escalating the stakes and the absurdity. It's not just a funny episode, it's a smart one, and it firmly establishes Rick and Morty as a show that isn't afraid to be weird, dark, and thought-provoking. My verdict on this episode? It's a strong contender for one of the best of the early seasons. It's not just a collection of jokes, it's a masterclass in building a cohesive narrative out of utter madness. It's ambitious, it's hilarious, and it leaves you thinking, which is exactly what you want from Rick and Morty. It sets a high bar for what the show can achieve, and honestly, it's a bar that they've managed to clear again and again throughout the series. It's a foundational episode, establishing key character dynamics and the show's signature blend of sci-fi and satire. It shows the writers were already firing on all cylinders. Let's dive into some of the moments that really define this episode. First up, that opening with Jerry in the Gulf. It's such a perfect encapsulation of Jerry's pathetic existence. He's out there bragging about a birdie like he's just won the Masters, but he's just sitting on the couch, yelling at the TV. And then the dog pees on the carpet. It's such a mundane, relatable problem, but Jerry's reaction is totally over the top. He sees it as a personal insult, a challenge to his authority. Rick, meanwhile, is just chilling, probably already high, and he sees this whole domestic squabble is beneath him. The way he just casually shuts off the TV when Jerry gets too worked up is a masterclass in passive aggression. It shows he has no patience for this kind of human drama. And then Jerry asks Rick to make the dog smarter. It's the ultimate Jerry move, wanting a miracle solution without any of the effort. He's not thinking about the implications, he just wants his dog to be better so he can feel better. Rick's response about feeling superior to your dog is so spot on. It's the dark heart of pet ownership for some people, and Jerry embodies that perfectly. He doesn't want a companion, he wants a status symbol that obeys him. And when Rick refuses, Jerry pulls the classic parent card. You're staying here rent-free. You're using my son, so you owe me this. It's blackmail, essentially, and Rick, despite his bravado, is cornered. Morty is grounded if he doesn't comply, which, of course, is the ultimate leverage over Rick. The whole scene is a perfect blend of character, comedy, and plot propulsion. It establishes the family dynamic, Jerry's desperation, and Rick's reluctant involvement in their mundane lives. It's a small moment, but it sets the stage for everything that follows. I'd tweak it slightly, though. Maybe make Rick's initial refusal even more dismissive, really leaning into his disdain for Jerry's petty problems. Perhaps he's actively engaged in some bizarre experiment, and Jerry's request is just a minor annoyance he has to swat away. Like he's trying to boil water with his mind or something equally pointless, and Jerry's yapping about the dog just breaks his concentration. But as it is, it works perfectly to get the plot moving. Next up, the creation of the dog intelligence helmet and Snuffles' subsequent transformation. Rick builds this thing. It's all whirring lights and sci-fi mumbo-jumbo, and he shoves it onto Snuffles. The immediate aftermath is hilarious. Snuffles is suddenly performing tricks with incredible precision. Shake, roll over, go to the bathroom. The toilet flush is the mic drop. Summer's stunned belief, Rick's smug, "You're at the top of your game now, Jerry." It's all gold. But the real kicker is Snuffles' newfound intelligence. He's not just fetching slippers, he's articulating his desires. When he says, "Humans understand Snuffles now? Snuffles fix, make better." It's chilling. He's not happy being a pet anymore. He sees the inherent inequality. His transformation from a simple dog into a revolutionary leader is arguably the most compelling arc in the episode. His line, "Snuffles was my slave name. You shall now call me Snowball because my fur is pretty and white," is iconic. It's a powerful statement on oppression and identity. He's reclaiming his agency, and he's done with being a subordinate. Jerry and Summer's reactions are also great. Jerry is initially proud, then horrified as he realizes the consequences. Summer, ever the contrarian, is weirdly impressed by the dog's sentience, even if she's also a little scared. The whole canine uprising plot is so unexpectedly well developed. It's not just a throwaway gag, it's a full-blown narrative that runs parallel to the dream jumping. I love how they parallel the idea of man's best friend with actual servitude. It's dark, it's funny, and it makes you think about our relationship with animals. What I'd change here is maybe giving Snuffles a slightly more nuanced initial reaction. Instead of just immediate revolutionary fervor, maybe there's a moment of confusion, of his canine instincts warring with his newfound intellect. Like, he sees a squirrel and his brain tells him to chase it, but his higher consciousness says, "No, Snuffles, you have bigger things to worry about." That brief internal conflict could have added another layer to his transformation, but even without that, it's a standout moment. Then we have the actual dream jumping. Rick's invention, the dream recorder, is so cool. It's like Inception, but made by a drunk genius. Morty's excited, of course, but also terrified. Rick's explanation of using it to incept Goldenfold into giving Morty an A is so typically Rick. He's not trying to solve the problem, he's trying to bypass it entirely. Morty's question, "Couldn't you have just helped me with my homework?" is so pure and earnest. It highlights the fundamental difference between him and Rick. Rick sees homework as an obstacle. Morty sees it as a learning opportunity. Rick's response, "Homework is stupid. The whole point is to get less of it," is the distillation of his anti-establishment, anti-effort philosophy. It's brilliant and terrifying. When they enter Goldenfold's dream, it's immediately surreal. The plane scene is a great example of how subconscious minds can create bizarre scenarios. Goldenfold as a terroristic pilot threatening to crash unless Morty gets a better grade is hilariously specific. It's like his deepest fear is failing as a teacher, manifesting in the most extreme way possible. Rick's reaction, "Allah Akbar, we're going to take control of this plane. We're going to 9/11 it unless Morty Smith gets better grades in math," is pure Rick. He's not above using extreme, offensive humor to make a point or just to shock. It's also incredibly dark. The passenger screams, the ensuing chaos, it's all part of the nightmare. Rick's realization that Goldenfold is an active dreamer and that they have to take him out so he wakes up adds a layer of danger. The warning, "If you get killed in someone else's dream, you die for real, Morty," is the crucial plot point that raises the stakes astronomically. It turns a fun sci-fi concept into a genuine life-or-death situation. Morty's panic is completely justified. Rick's response, "You avoid getting shot in real life all the time, Morty. Just do the same thing here," is classic Rick. He's comparing a surreal dreamscape to real-world danger, completely underestimating the psychological impact. I would have made this scene even more disorienting. Perhaps the plane itself starts to glitch and morph, reflecting the unstable nature of the dream. Or maybe the other passengers start to reveal their own bizarre dreams, creating a fractal nightmare within the dream. But the core of the scene, the immediate threat and the revelation of the dream death rule, is solid. Let's talk about Scary Terry. This guy is a stroke of genius. Rick and Morty get kicked out of a dream, falling into another one, and suddenly they're face to face with a low-budget horror movie villain. Rick's description, some sort of legally safe knockoff of an 80s horror character with miniature swords for fingers instead of knives, is perfect. He's clearly a parody of Freddy Krueger, but with enough unique twists to be his own thing. "I'm Scary Terry. You can run, but you can't hide, bitch." That catchphrase is gold. It's menacing, it's ridiculous, and it's memorable. The fact that he's born from the fear of the dream's inhabitant, but also feels like he's been around forever, is intriguing. The whole sequence where they're running from him and Rick is trying to figure out how to escape is tense and funny. Rick's constant "uh-oh" and Morty's panic are the perfect counterpoint to Scary Terry's relentless pursuit. The introduction of Scary Terry is a great example of the show's ability to create memorable, original characters within its wild premises. It's not just about the plot, it's about the quirky inhabitants of these bizarre worlds. The moment where Rick realizes Scary Terry can travel through dreams and that they're so screwed is a real gut punch. It elevates the threat from a localized dream nightmare to a multiversal danger. It's not just about escaping one dream, it's about escaping the entire dream dimension. This is where the episode really ratchets up the stakes. I love how Rick initially tries to use logic against Scary Terry. He's like, well, if the truth is that we can hide, it's not like he'd be sharing that information with us, you know? It's this meta-commentary on horror tropes, where the villain's greatest threat is often the information they possess. And it works. They successfully hide from Scary Terry by realizing he's trying to trick them with his own catchphrase. This is a brilliant moment of Rick and Morty synergy, where Rick's cynicism and Morty's naivete combine to solve the problem. It's a moment of genuine cleverness amidst the chaos. If I were to change anything, it would be to make Scary Terry's origins even more specific to Goldenfold. Maybe he's a manifestation of Goldenfold's fear of a bad review, or a student's prank gone wrong. But as it is, he's a fantastic creation. The scene where Snowball, formerly Snuffles, confronts Summer and Jerry is intensely uncomfortable and brilliant. Snowball, now a hyper-intelligent dog, is absolutely done with being treated like a pet. His speech about being a sophisticated predator transformed into a subservient little buddy is a powerful critique of domestication and human hubris. He's not just angry, he's philosophical. He's analyzed his own existence and found it wanting. The lines, "If a human was born with stumpy legs, would they breed it with another deformed human and put their children on display like the dachshund?" are savage. He's using Jerry's own logic against him. It's a mirror held up to humanity's treatment of animals. Jerry's reaction is a mixture of fear and pathetic attempts at control. He tries to assert his dominance, but he's clearly outmatched. Summer's initial fascination with Snowball's intelligence quickly turns to fear when his revolutionary agenda becomes clear. She's seen the other side of the coin, and it's terrifying. The howling on TV, the dog recognizing the alphabet, it's all building to this moment of canine empowerment. This whole subplot is so well executed. It's not just a funny gag, it's a commentary on animal rights, consciousness, and the dangers of unchecked scientific advancement. The fact that Jerry tries to undo it by bringing Snuffles back to his normal state, by essentially stripping him of his sentience, is met with Summer's outrage. You can't endow a creature with sentience and then rip it away. It's a powerful ethical dilemma. This moment solidifies Snowball as one of the most memorable characters to emerge from a single episode. He's a product of Rick's science, but his arc is entirely his own. He's a villain, yes, but you can't help but root for his intelligence and his desire for freedom. The whole sequence is a masterclass in subverting expectations. You expect a dog to be cute and cuddly, but you get a sentient being demanding liberation. I would have maybe spent a bit more time showing Snowball's actual plan for canine liberation. Like seeing him communicate with other dogs, perhaps coordinating an attack. But as it is, the confrontation with Summer and Jerry is powerful enough. The whole Inception parody with Mr. Goldenfold's dream and the subsequent dives into deeper dreams is where the episode truly shines in its meta-commentary. Rick's quip, "It's just like that movie that you keep crowing about," and Morty's enthusiastic confirmation of Inception, followed by Rick's jab, "except, it's gonna maybe make sense," is peak Rick and Morty humor. It's a direct jab at the original film's perceived convoluted plot, while simultaneously embracing that same convoluted structure for their own story. Morty's defense of Inception is also perfect. He's that fanboy who thinks he understands it better than anyone. The transition into Goldenfold's subconscious with the dream plane and the 9/11 threat is already wild, but then they're forced to go deeper. The dream within a dream within a dream, it's a dizzying spiral. The introduction of Mrs. Pancakes, who is apparently within Goldenfold's dream, and then them entering her dream to slow things down, is a clever narrative device. Rick's reasoning, if we go into Mrs. Pancake's dream, everything will go 100 times slower, Morty. That'll buy us some time to figure this out, is classic Rick logic, a convoluted solution to a problem he created. This is where the episode really embraces its Inception inspiration by creating nested realities. The humor in these sequences comes from the escalating absurdity and the characters' increasingly desperate reactions. The dream of the gnomes, where Morty is trying to navigate a bizarre sexual encounter, is particularly disturbing and hilarious. And then the reveal of Summer within the dream in a sexualized context with Goldenfold is where it gets really dark and frankly quite shocking. Rick's reaction, "This is disgusting, I'm gonna puke. Sexual hang-ups in the pleasure chamber are punishable by death," is a visceral response to the disturbing imagery. And it also highlights the dangers of delving too deep into someone's subconscious. The idea that Goldenfold's dreams contain repressed desires about his student's sister is deeply unsettling and a very Rick and Morty thing to explore. This is where the show pushes boundaries, and sometimes it's uncomfortable, but it's always purposeful. The dive into Stary Terry's nightmare is another layer. It's a dream within a dream within a dream within a dream. The concept of dream bedrock is a fun way to describe hitting the limit of nested realities. The constant fear and the implications of Scary Terry being able to travel through dreams is what makes this section so impactful. It's not just about a convoluted plot, it's about the existential horror of being trapped in a psychic labyrinth with no escape. If I were to change anything here, it would be to make the connections between the dream layers a little clearer, or perhaps have a more direct thematic link between each dream and Goldenfold's core issue. But the sheer inventiveness of creating so many layers of dreams is what makes it memorable. Let's talk about the Smith family at home while Rick and Morty are off on their adventure. Jerry, Beth, Summer, and Morty are dealing with Snowball's burgeoning sentience. This is where the episode really shines in its character work and its dark humor. Jerry's initial pride in the dog's intelligence quickly turns to fear and regret. He's the one who pushed for it, but he's also the one who can't handle the consequences. His attempts to control Snowball, to force him back into submission, are pathetic. Summer, on the other hand, is more pragmatic. She sees the ethical implications of enslaving Snowball and wants to find a way for him to coexist. Beth, as usual, is the voice of reason, but even she's a bit overwhelmed by the situation. The scene where Snowball demands to be called Snowball and rejects his slave name is a powerful moment that highlights the themes of identity and oppression. His subsequent philosophical musings on domestication and human cruelty are both insightful and terrifying. It's a testament to the writing that a talking dog can deliver such profound social commentary. The howling on TV, the dog recognizing the alphabet, it all builds to this moment of canine empowerment. This whole subplot is so well executed. It's not just a funny gag. It's a commentary on animal rights, consciousness, and the dangers of unchecked scientific advancement. The fact that Jerry tries to undo it by bringing Snuffles back to his normal state, by essentially stripping him of his sentience, is met with Summer's outrage. You can't, endow a creature with sentience and then rip it away. It's a powerful ethical dilemma. This moment solidifies Snowball as one of the most memorable characters to emerge from a single episode. He's a product of Rick's science, but his arc is entirely his own. He's a villain, yes, but you can't help but root for his intelligence and his desire for freedom. The whole sequence is a masterclass in subverting expectations. You expect a dog to be cute and cuddly, but you get a sentient being demanding liberation. I would have maybe spent a bit more time showing Snowball's actual plan for canine liberation, like seeing him communicate with other dogs, perhaps coordinating an attack. But as it is, the confrontation with Summer and Jerry is powerful enough. The emotional weight of Snowball's awakening and the family's reaction to it is incredibly well done. It's this blend of the absurd and the deeply resonant that makes Rick and Morty so special. It makes you question your own relationships with animals and the societal structures we take for granted. It's a lot to unpack, and it's all happening while Rick and Morty are off fighting dream demons. That's the genius of this show. Let's talk about the characters. Jerry. Oh, Jerry. In this episode, he's the king of pathetic. He's desperate for validation, for control, and he's willing to be a complete idiot to get it. His insistence on having a dog that makes him look good and his utter inability to handle the consequences of his demands is peak Jerry. He's the human embodiment of a participation trophy. His best moment is probably his horrified realization that he's unleashed a canine revolution, followed immediately by his pathetic attempts to reassert dominance. He's not just a bad dad, he's a bad dog owner and a generally terrible person. His role in this episode really highlights the show's ability to create characters you love to hate. He's the constant reminder of the mundane, frustrating reality that Rick and Morty constantly escape from, but also the source of much of the conflict. His dynamic with Rick is a never-ending source of comedy, with Rick's brilliant indifference to Jerry's entire existence. Summer, bless her sarcastic heart, is actually a bit more insightful than usual here. She's disgusted by Goldenfold's dream perversions, and she's also the one who calls out Jerry on the ethical implications of desentientizing Snowball. She's not just the typical eye-rolling teenager. She has moments of genuine moral clarity, even if she expresses them with a healthy dose of teen angst. Her scream when she sees her dream self with Goldenfold is pure terror, and her reaction to Snowball's intellectual demands is a mix of awe and fear. She's growing, and this episode shows a glimpse of that. Morty, our anxious protagonist, is, as always, the everyman caught in Rick's whirlwind.
He's terrified, he's questioning everything, but he ultimately goes along with Rick's insane plans. His idealism, his desire to just do things the right way, like helping with homework, is constantly at odds with Rick's nihilistic pragmatism. His moment of realizing that they could have just hidden from Scary Terry and his subsequent excitement at being on the same page as Rick is a sweet, albeit brief, victory for him. He's the moral compass, even if it's a compass that's constantly spinning wildly. And then there's Rick. Rick is Rick. He's brilliant, he's reckless, he's amoral, and he's utterly compelling. In this episode, he's the architect of both the dream invasion and the dog uprising, albeit indirectly. His motivation is simple, getting Morty help with his grades so Morty can help him with the science. It's a selfish, short-sighted plan, but it's also so quintessentially Rick. His ability to create such complex technology like the Dream Recorder and then use it for such petty, selfish reasons is what makes him so fascinating. His commentary on Inception, his casual disregard for Jerry's feelings, his willingness to put Morty in mortal danger, it all paints a picture of a character who operates on a completely different plane of existence. He's the catalyst for all the chaos, and he seems to enjoy every minute of it. His character here is the bedrock of the show's appeal. Okay, let's dig into some of the hidden gems that make this episode so rewatchable. First off, the music. Not just the score, but the diegetic music Rick uses. When he's trying to impress Jerry with how smart Snuffles is, he says, "Shake, roll over, go to the bathroom," and then the toilet flushes. That little sound effect, the flush, is so perfectly timed and unexpected. It's a sound we associate with mundane bodily functions, but in this context, it's presented as a triumph of science. It's that kind of subtle, absurd humor that Rick and Morty excels at. It's not just about the jokes, it's about the sound design reinforcing the comedy. Then there's the Inception parody itself. Rick says, this is going to be a lot like that, except, it's going to maybe make sense. That is such a direct, ballsy critique of one of the most talked about movies of the early 2010s. It's not just a throwaway line, it's a statement about the show's own creative philosophy. They're going to tackle complex sci-fi concepts, but they're going to do it with a clear, albeit insane, logic. They're not afraid to poke fun at the very genre they're operating in.
It's a sign of confidence and a desire to carve out their own unique space. The visual gag with Mr. Goldenfold's dream plane, when Rick says, "We're going to 9/11 it unless Morty Smith gets better grades in math." And then we see the plane. It's not just a generic plane. It's clearly a commercial airliner, but the way it's rendered, combined with the over-the-top dialogue, makes it look almost like a toy plane in a nightmare. It's this subtle visual cue that reinforces the surreal, dreamlike quality of the scene. It's not meant to be realistic. It's meant to be symbolic of Goldenfold's internal panic. The lighting and the colors used in the dream sequences are also worth noting. They're often more saturated or distorted compared to the real world, highlighting the subjective and often nightmarish nature of the subconscious. And let's not forget the background details. In the dream sequences, there are often subtle visual cues that hint at the dreamer's psyche. For example, the gnomes giggling in the background during Morty's uncomfortable dream sequence. Gnomes are often associated with the earth, with hidden things, and in this context, they seem to be leering observers of something deeply disturbing. They're not just set dressing, they're adding to the atmosphere of unease and perversion. It's this kind of attention to detail that rewards attentive viewers. Finally, the name Scary Terry. It's a deliberate, almost lazy play on Freddy Krueger's name, but it's made even funnier by Rick's deadpan analysis of him as a legally safe knockoff. It's a meta-joke about intellectual property and the nature of parody. The writers are acknowledging the influence while also creating something entirely new and bizarre. It's this self-aware humor that makes the show so special. They know they're referencing other works, but they always put their own twisted spin on it. So what if they did it differently? What if instead of Rick inventing the dog intelligence helmet, Jerry stumbled upon it? Imagine Jerry, in his desperate attempts to impress Mr. Goldenfold or someone else, finds some discarded alien tech in the garage and, with his usual incompetence, accidentally turns Snuffles into a genius. That would have shifted the focus from Rick's godlike power to Jerry's accidental and likely disastrous influence. The consequences would still be there, but the source of the problem would be Jerry's inherent flawed nature, not Rick's scientific hubris. It would make Jerry even more of a pathetic figure, which for this show is often a good thing. Another change could have been in the dream sequences. What if, instead of directly trying to incept Morty's grade, Rick's plan went completely sideways, and they ended up accidentally incepting a completely different and much more dangerous idea into Goldenfold's mind? Like, instead of giving Morty an A, they inadvertently convince Goldenfold that he's actually a master spy, and the entire school is a front for a secret organization. That would have led to a whole different kind of chaos, focusing on Goldenfold's delusion rather than Morty's grades. It could have been a really interesting exploration of how easily minds can be manipulated. And what about Snowball's revolution? What if, instead of a direct confrontation with Gary and Summer, Snowball's rebellion was more subtle? Imagine him subtly manipulating the household, turning the other pets against the humans, or influencing Beth and Jerry to treat him with more respect through a series of carefully orchestrated events. It would have been a slower burn, more psychological, and perhaps even more terrifying. It would have leaned into the idea of intelligence being a more dangerous weapon than brute force. It would have also made Jerry's eventual realization even more gut-wrenching, as he'd been oblivious to the growing threat under his own roof. These are just a few ideas, of course. The beauty of Rick and Morty is that there are endless possibilities for how things could have gone, and that's what makes it so endlessly rewatchable. So, the verdict on this episode? I'm giving it a solid 8.3 out of 10. Why not a perfect 10? Because while it's incredibly inventive and funny, the dream logic, while impressive, does get a tad overwhelming towards the end. It's a lot to keep track of, and sometimes you feel like you're just getting tossed around with Rick and Morty, not necessarily grasping the intricacies. The dog subplot, while brilliant, feels slightly separate in its conclusion from the dream plot. What would have pushed it to a 9? If those two storylines had been woven together just a little tighter, or if the resolution of the dream plot had had a more direct impact on the dog revolution, or vice versa. This episode is definitely for the fans who love the show's ambitious sci-fi concepts and its dark, cynical humor. If you're looking for a lighthearted romp, this might be a bit much. But if you're here for the mind-bending plots, the character development, and the sheer audacity of it all, this episode is a must-watch. It's a testament to the early days of Rick and Morty, when they were still proving they could pull off these wild, experimental episodes and make them work. It's a bold statement of intent that perfectly encapsulates the show's unique brand of genius. It's the kind of episode that makes you think, how in the hell did they come up with this? And then immediately want to watch it again. It's a fantastic early showcase for the series' potential, and it remains a standout episode for good reason. It's the episode that says, yeah, we're doing dreams, and we're going to make it weird and terrifying and hilarious, and you're going to love it. And they were absolutely right. The blend of domestic squabbles, existential dread, and absurd science fiction is perfectly balanced here, setting the stage for all